Welcome to our channel, where we share real-life stories full of drama, suspense, and horror. Every story on this channel has been lived by real people and will take you to mysterious and thrilling worlds. Join us to explore the dark side of life and experience events that will leave you amazed and on edge. Just a memory for me, beautiful and a fleeting specter from the past. The end of the story. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel to receive all new updates, and do not forget to press the like button and motivating comments. May you always be good. Today's story is told to us by Munir about his terrifying experience that he lived in his grandmother's house in the desert. He was the one who thought that the Jinn had their own world and could not in any way enter or influence our world. Anyone who says that he saw or heard the Jinn is an illusionist, as he thought. This was Munir's opinion, which changed completely after something happened to him that he did not expect to happen in his grandmother's house in the desert. If you are a fan of Jinn stories, then you are in the right place. Subscribe to the channel and activate bell to receive our stories first. Then I have a small request from you, my friends. If you would be so kind as to press the like button before you start listening to the story. This simple gesture is the greatest support for the channel. Let's begin today's story. Munir is a 25-year-old young man, polite and calm. He works in one of the telecommunications companies. His work is hard and tedious, but he works hard and is active. Munir used to visit his grandmother in the village, which is about an hour away from the city. Munir was loving to the desert. He loved its beautiful atmosphere, so he used to relax there from the hustle and bustle of the city and the turmoil of work and its hardship. He would always sit outside his grandmother's house and hear nothing but the sound of nature and its beautiful faces. With that visit, he would connect with his grandmother, who lived alone after his grandfather's death. The grandmother was a kind woman who was very happy with the visit of her grandson Munir. She considered him the most beloved of her grandchildren, as he was almost the only one who visited her from time to time. And when on vacation, he decided Munir wanted to visit his grandmother to spend a few days with her, so he prepared his small bag and then traveled to the village. It was a pleasant surprise for the grandmother, who was very happy with her grandson's visit, especially since he does not come with empty hands, but rather brings with him some fruits and sweets that she loves, and sometimes he even brings her a simple gift which makes her heart flutter with joy. Peace, greetings, and a question about the family. The grandmother got up and prepared food for Munir, followed by a pot of tea. Then they sat down. They talked to each other until night fell and it was time to sleep. Munir used to sleep in the living room where his grandmother slept, so he could comfort her. Perhaps she told him a story before bed, as she used to do when he was a child. The grandmother asked her grandson Munir to go to his grandfather's room to bring her a blanket, as the weather had become cold in the room. At night, she said to him, "You will find a box in your grandfather's room. Open it, take the lid from it, then close it." After that, Munir was surprised by his grandmother's request, since his grandfather, before his death, did not allow access. No one could enter his room, and even after his death, the grandmother prevented anyone who wanted to enter this room, even her children. It seems that the grandmother was tired that night, and she cherished Munir and loved him very much and trusted him. Perhaps that is why she allowed him to enter his grandfather's room. The grandmother took out a key that was hidden and gave it to Munir, saying, "This is the key to the box, and do not forget to close it." After you take the lid, Munir entered his grandfather's room, carrying a lamp in his hand. A feeling of dread seized him. Then he saw his picture. His grandfather found the pendant, as if he was looking at it. Munir avoided staring at the picture. Then he went to the box to take the lid. It was an old, decorated wooden box. Munir took the lid out of it. When he wanted to close it, his attention was caught by a book inside the box. It was not an ordinary book. It looked very old. Even its title was no longer visible. It was from a book. The sides looked like a plan that is hundreds of years old. Munir kept looking at the book absent-mindedly, wondering whose book this is and what is its subject here. The grandmother sensed Munir's delay, so she started calling him. Munir did not delay, so Munir stopped his distraction and quickly closed the box and returned to his grandmother with the lid. His features were changed and his heart was beating, and he did not know what the reason was. Then he asked his grandmother angrily. My grandmother was surprised. I saw inside the box a strange book. It was very old. Was that book my grandfather's? Grandma was upset when she heard this. Rather, she blamed Munir severely and said to him, "Be careful, then be careful not to bring that letter closer. If you have any sympathy for me in your heart, then forget about that. The book, and never think about it. Your grandfather, may God have mercy on him, instructed me before his death to hide that book so that no one could have access to it." Munir was certain that there was a mysterious secret behind that old book, and he could not restrain his thoughts about it or curb his curiosity towards looking at it, so he decided to do something and returned the key to the box to his grandmother, but he watched where she was going to put it. Munir turned off the lamp and then lay down in his bed. He kept tossing and turning as he thought about the book and wondered what dangerous secret lay hidden between it. He hugged him. Sleep had dried up from his eyes, so he decided to get out of bed after he was sure that his grandmother was in a deep sleep. He took the key to the box and headed to his grandfather's room, sneaking away, and all his thoughts were about the box and the book inside it. He did not know that by doing this, he would open a door of evil that would be difficult to close. Munir entered his grandfather's room, the same feeling of dread and anxiety that he felt a short while ago. He opened the box and took out the book. His heart was beating hard as he opened the first page and began reading page after page. Without realizing it, he found himself halfway through the book. He did not understand how he had done this in such a short time. Munir began to suspect that he was not alone in the room, but what was Munir reading without understanding it? He was reading magic spells to conjure the kings of the Jinn, but Munir did not know that. He thought it was an old book that might be meaningless, or that it had meaning in ancient times. He did not know that he would regret his action throughout his life. For information, in the world of infidel jinn and demons, there are always kings and servants whose goals are evil. It is malicious, and conjuring them is fraught with dangers and dangers. Whoever conjures them must be able to ward them off and must have come a long way in the world of magic, sorcery, and polytheism. God forbid, if someone, without realizing it, was in the process of conjuring the jinn, and not just any jinn, rather he is one of the kings of the jinn. Munir seemed to feel a heaviness in his mind. His head and feet became numb, as if he had no control over his body, as if he was wearing something and he was controlling his movements, and here the shock seemed luminous. He walks out of the house without his will. The king of the jinn who possesses him is the one who walks wherever he wants. And as is known, the favorite food of the devils is carrion and blood. After Munir left the house, he found himself in the middle of his grandmother's humble barn, where there were some sheep and a few chickens, and suddenly Munir began to kill sheep and strangled the chickens in a horrific and indescribable scene. He killed the animals in a horrific way, drank their blood, and even cut off the heads of the chickens with his teeth in a disgusting way. After he finished, Munir, the bloody slaughterhouse in which the king of the jinn fulfilled his brutal desire. He lost consciousness and fell unconscious inside the pen, among the body parts of animals and their spilled blood. It was the grandmother's habit to perform the dawn prayer to the sound of the rooster crowing, but at the dawn of that bloody day, the rooster did not crow. The grandmother rose from her bed, surprised by the matter, and thinking that her rooster was stolen, or a fox entered the pen and ate it, but she did not expect what she would see. The grandmother was shocked by the sight. The terrifying Munir was covered in blood, and on his hands were the remains of the birds he had killed. The grandmother screamed with all her might, which made her neighbors from the village run to her to see what had happened to her. Everyone was shocked by what they saw. Some people picked up Munir and brought him into the house. They washed his limbs and cleaned him of that blood, then Wenswood. They changed his clothes, all of this, and he lost his inspiration. When the grandmother returned home and entered the grandfather's room, she found the box open and the book lying on the floor, so she understood what it happened, that she learned that Munir did not take her advice to him, and his curiosity got the better of him until he fell into the forbidden act. The disaster was, so she quickly returned to the people who had gathered around Munir and asked them to occupy themselves with the Quran, as the matter had to do with touch and jinn, and to summon them immediately to the imam of the village mosque. The imam came in a hurry and entered where Munir, who had woken up, was lying. From his coma, nothing was wrong with him, and he started screaming at the sheikh, then shouted, threatening to take the worst revenge on him. He approached him, but the sheikh and the imam did not pay attention to these threats. He asked everyone to leave the room, except for only 2 men from the village who remained with the imam to help him if necessary, and the epilepsy process began, which lasted for long hours. Munir does not remember everything that happened to him, during which the imam was able to matter. He brought out the king of the jinn after he bombarded him with incendiary verses and suggested with his earth-shattering hymn that it was the power of the sufficient and healing word of God. After Munir was cured, he learned the truth about the mysterious book found in his grandfather's room. At that time, the grandmother could not find it. She began by confessing to her grandson that his grandfather was a magician and used that book for the purposes of magic, sorcery, and conjuring the jinn. Of course, she was not satisfied with that, but she had no help. She was helpless after this incident, from which Munir emerged safely. It confirmed to him that the jinn are in our world and may influence it. We have to, and they may even pose a danger to a person if he does not protect himself. His advice is enlightening to everyone, to stay away from everything related to the world of magic and not to read any book, or an incantation, even out of curiosity and exploration, as the consequences may be dire and the events may be painful. We ask God Almighty to save us from the evil of mankind and the jinn. End of the story. Wait for your opinions in the comments. Do not forget to press the like button and subscribe to the channel. May you always be good.